Boxy Boo was originally created in 1966, 5 years after Braun was created. While he was somewhat successful, he wasn't as popular as the other toys, not appearing in the company's main lineup of mascot toys in the 90s. However, Playtime Company found a new purpose for Boxy Boo in its various experiments. Boxy Boo's box could be seen in the tape introducing the Bigger Bodies Initiative, a group of experiments with the goal of turning employees into giant workforce to avoid lawsuits and have more efficient work done. The Boxy Boo in Project Playtime is the first Boxy Boo monster to have been created from these experiments. After sending a recording to Leaf Pierre regarding the rumors of nanny cameras being hidden within Huggy Wuggy's eyes, Rowan Stoll gains knowledge that Playtime Company is an evil corporation experimenting with life and is aware that he is the next person to die to the hands of these experiments. Rowan writes a letter to his mother after ending his third, final recording and walks downstairs towards the theater's backstage where he would be eaten alive by Boxy Boo. This monster is a streamlined hunter with both speed and agility on his side. His springy limbs allow him to jump high and far to reach wherever he desires. Boxy has several ways to surprise his prey. He can go into box form and hide amongst the scenery. His spring arm allows him to grab survivors and pull them close before clawing them to death. On top of it all, his music will become louder and faster the closer he gets to his prey. This cute but deadly creature is the horrific offshoot of several failed experiments. The first of his kind, he was based off of his toy counterpart. The original toy was created in 1966 and was later used as the base structure to create this monster. Boxy Boo is a selectable monster that makes his debut in Project Playtime. He is depicted to be a box-shaped figure with springs connecting to his body and has a variety of moves that require stealth and precision.
In this video I will tell you about one of the most recognizable heroes of the game Poppy Playtime. Huggy Wuggy is one of the main antagonists of Poppy Playtime. He is the main mascot of the Playtime Company. In addition to being the guard of the Playtime Factory, Playtime Company has created hundreds of different toys, but none of them is more connected with people than Huggy Wuggy. The founder, Elliot Ludwig, aimed to create a toy that can hug forever. In Chapter 1, A Tight Squeeze, Huggy is first seen standing in his statue form by the player in an exhibition hall. When the player's back is turned, Huggy will hold a key on his right arm but remain motionless. After taking the key and turning the power back on in the power room, the player returns to the exhibition hall only to find that Huggy has now disappeared. Huggy goes on to stalk the player as they make their way through the facility. After the player manages to turn back on the toy-making machines and bypasses a door system using a toy made from the machines, Huggy reveals himself. Following the player into the facility's ventilation system, an intense chase ensues as Huggy attempts to catch and devour the player. After managing to momentarily escape Huggy and landing on a brittle catwalk, the player pulls a crate onto the crumbling structure just as Huggy bursts from the vents, causing it to collapse. Though the player manages to land safely on another catwalk not far below, Huggy strikes the railing and proceeds to fall into the abyss on the facility, slamming into several pipelines and leaving behind dark red blood splatters. In Chapter 2, Fly in the Web, Huggy does not appear, but is instead mentioned in the second entry discussing Experiment 1006, in which he was confirmed to be a different being as he used the alias Experiment 1170 instead. In Log 08502, Huggy was briefly mentioned as Experiment 1107, and was dubbed the most optimal subject, as he possesses the ideal amount of intelligence and is obedient to the scientists working at the company. According to Micah Prechado, Huggy Wuggy was not actually inspired by any animal like a dog. Instead, he was unironically inspired by Sour Patch Kids. Sour Patch Kids are delicious soft chewy candies that are coated with sour sugar, so the flavor of the lollipops changes from sour to sweet. Huggy is presumed an ex-human, as the writing in the vent chase says "This isn't my body." This however can be proven as false, as Huggy is presumed to be the one who wrote the writings in the vent chase. Huggy Wuggy is confirmed to be Kissy Missy's lover. Based on Kissy Missy's profile on the digital collectible website, the term better half is a term for a spouse. Huggy Wuggy's better half and adorable counterpart, Kissy Missy, has a strange way of making any toy collection feel whole. Kissy Missy makes a minor appearance in Chapter 2. In the cart corridors, she is first seen walking towards the player, in a fashion similar to how Huggy Wuggy walks when triggering the vent chase. Separated from the player by a gate, she looks at the player for a short moment, then notices the lever nearby. She proceeds to pull it downwards, although unsuccessful on her first try, to open the metal gate. As the gate slowly rises up, she looks at the player once more, and walks away. Once the player reaches the end of the corridor from which she had come from, Kissy is nowhere to be seen. Facts: despite being quite tall, Huggy is very flexible and can easily move through ventilation shafts. On the ventilation wall, you can see a lot of inscriptions, which basically urge the player to accept, return, etc. But among them you can notice this: "I'm sorry, but I'm hungry." This can confirm that Huggy Wuggy has a mind, and that all the phrases on the walls were written by him. Huggy Wuggy is a living being. Real human eyes can be seen inside Huggy's toy eyes. This is clearly visible in the main menu of the game when you select Chapter 1. But, as it turned out later, it was only a reflection from the floor. In Chapter 2, it was confirmed that Huggy is Experiment 1170, and not Experiment 1006, which turned out to be the prototype, as many believed before the release of Chapter 2. A fly in the web. While playing, you might not notice some moments. For example, after opening the door leading to the warehouse, you can see the monster's hand. It will quickly crawl out the door if you get close. If you find at least one battery in the warehouse, and return to the power supply, you can see Huggy peeking out from under the door, on which a sign is drawn prohibiting entry there. The monster will simply watch the player, but unlike the first meeting, here his smirk slightly exposes the monster's teeth. After a short period of time, the door will slam shut and Huggy will slip out of sight. Playing Poppy Playtime, the hero and the game itself became extremely interesting, including in the field of animated films. One after another, small short videos began to be released, further popularizing Huggy Wuggy. Of course, Huggy was demonized and the man, smiling broadly, rushed towards everyone in the desire to hug tightly, deathly hug. Although at the end of the first chapter, Huggy falls from a great height leaving bloody trails behind him, it is still assumed that he will return, as a vent surrounded by blood and blue fur can be seen in the water treatment area around a certain room. For those who watched this video to the end, a small bonus from me in the form of a song about Huggy Wuggy, stylized as the 80s. It is short but pretty sweet.
His name is Huggy, Huggy Wuggy. When he hugs you, he'll never stop. Your friend Huggy, Huggy Wuggy, he'll squeeze you until you pop. His name is Huggy, Huggy Wuggy. When he hugs you, he'll never stop. Your friend Huggy, Huggy Wuggy, he'll squeeze you until you pop.
Kissy Missy makes a minor appearance in Chapter 2. In the cart corridors, she is first seen walking towards the player, in a fashion similar to how Huggy Wuggy walks when triggering the vent chase. Separated from the player by a gate, she looks at the player for a short moment, then notices the lever nearby. She proceeds to pull it downwards, although unsuccessful on her first try, to open the metal gate. As the gate slowly rises up, she looks at the player once more, and walks away. Once the player reaches the end of the corridor from which she had come from, Kissy is nowhere to be seen. Interesting features. Before her official name was revealed on Twitter, Lovey Devay was a popular name for her fans. Kissy Missy's relation to Huggy Wuggy has been confirmed. shown on the Kissy Missy collectible. As her description stated, Kissy Missy is more than just Huggy Wuggy's better half. The term better half means a partner or spouse. Made in 1985, Kissy is one of the experiments created by Playtime CEO and romantic pair of Huggy Wuggy. She's extremely similar to her partner but being pink and with blue body. For reasons unknown, Kissy Missy has what appears to be a tear in her left eye while pulling the lever in the entrance mines. This is due to the model not having its own textures, instead just replacing visible blue fur with pink fur from Huggy Wuggy's model. There is a storyboard of an unused ending to Chapter 2, where Kissy Missy was originally going to appear at the end of Chapter 2. In this unused ending, she would appear after the train had crashed and give the player a key while he was passed out. Kissy Missy is practically not in the first chapter. All you can find is one single poster in the power supply room. Kissy Missy can later be spotted within the spin-off horror title, Project Playtime. Seen as an unlockable skin for Huggy Wuggy, this version of Kissy Missy remains largely similar to her debut appearance. However, exceptions make her look as if her better half Huggy Wuggy, with a large maw featuring dozens of jagged needle-like teeth. Her eyes also appear dilated, seen with pitch white dot pupils. Bunzo Bunny is an anthropomorphic yellow rabbit with black eyes, 2 large buck teeth and long ears. He frequently appears with a wide grin. He also wears a green party hat similar to those seen on clowns and matching overalls with suspenders and buttons of the same color. Bunzo typically holds 2 golden symbols. His cheeks are orange similarly to the inside of his ears. He has small tufts of fur around his chest and on top of his head. In his aggressive form, he retains largely the same appearance. However, one notable difference is that he now has a row of jagged fangs lining his mouth, which is also split further and wide open. Bunzo Bunny is often seen as being very cheerful and playful, always wishing people happy birthdays. His murals and cutouts show that Bunzo also likes to joke around, making wacky poses with his facial expressions. He seems to enjoy celebrating others' birthdays when he can get the chance, evidenced by the audio clips shown alongside his cardboard cutouts.
Oh, happy birthday! Oh, happy, happy birthday! Oh, happy birthday! Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday!
Bunzo acts as the main mascot and antagonist for musical memory, in which he will lower towards the player as the player plays the game. If the player gets continuous errors in the game's pattern sequence or fails to play the game quickly within the timing of Bunzo's descent, he will reach the player, jump scaring and killing the player, and resetting the game. The monstrous and sentient Bunzo, however, takes on a darker and more twisted personality, showing his excitement and ravenous behavior through his symbols, crashing them faster and louder the closer he gets to the player. He seemingly delights in eating the player if the player fails the game, screaming and crashing his symbols with a deafening din before doing so.
I know when your birthday is! June 28th!
A few minutes after the player leaves the game area, faint thrashing noises as well as crashing from Bunzo's symbols can be heard. This tells us that Mommy Longlegs murdered Bunzo for failing to kill the player. If the player returns to the game station after leaving musical memory, Bunzo's corpse can be spotted on the ceiling, hanging motionless and trapped by Mommy's webs. The cable attached to Bunzo's back that was used for his ascent and descent in musical memory is nowhere to be seen. Experiment 1222, real name Marie Payne, most commonly known as Mommy Longlegs, is one of the 2 secondary antagonists, alongside Huggy Wuggy, in the 2021 horror video game Poppy Playtime. serving as the main antagonist of Chapter 2. Fly in a Web and will likely appear as a posthumous antagonist in future chapters. She is a sadistically playful, pink spider-like toy created by Playtime Company. In 1991, one of her most notable features are her limbs, which are extremely elastic and bendable. In a secret note, Mommy Longlegs was the result of an experiment on a woman named Marie Payne, who was brutally tortured and experimented on, presumably by the scientist. It is written that she shows hatred and hostility towards the staff for experimenting on her but acts nicely to the other experiments and children. When the player first meets Poppy in the hallway, Mommy's stretchy hand emerges from the hole, grabs Poppy, and pulls her down the hole. The player first meets Mommy Longlegs before entering the game station where she is holding Poppy hostage. She informs the player that instead of just giving the player the train code as Poppy wanted to do, they will have to play one of her games for the code. She then leaves after threatening to tear the player limb from limb and eat their organs alive should they break the rules. She will then appear in the room where the player plays Musical Memory. Before the game starts, she wonders how excited Bunzo Bunny is to play, as well as eat, since nobody has played in such a long time. After the game, she gives up part of the train code, but decides to continue playing with the player. When the player leaves, thrashing noises and cymbals are heard, and in the game station, Bunzo's corpse can found hung to the ceiling via spider webs, implying that Mommy killed him as punishment for failing to kill the player. Before the Wacko Wuggy game, she says that the Huggies used to have strings attached to them so they could be pulled back if they got too close to the children. After winning the game, she gives up another part of the code for the train. Similar to Bunzo, thrashing noises are heard when exiting the game, and later, several Huggies are found hung to the ceiling via the same webs. In the third game, Mommy explains that the children used to call her Mommy, as they shared a close bond with her. She knows that the player is an ex-employee and says that they deserve to be trapped in the factory for their role in experimenting on the children. Her final challenge to the protagonist is a chase against PJ Pug-a-Pillar. During the chase, the protagonist finds that the exit has been blocked by rubble. They then escapes into an employee observatory. This escape infuriates Mommy, who tracks the protagonist down in the service tunnels and accuses them of cheating. She announces that they will then play one final game of hide and seek. After evading her, the player finally lures her into an industrial grinder and activates it, crushing half her body and killing her. Her remains are then dragged under a barred-up door by a hand. While she stated that she doesn't like cheaters, she ironically rigged all the games from the start by making most of them virtually impossible to win, making her somewhat hypocritical. The examples: in Musical Memory, while the game originally only had 4 colors, Mommy Longlegs tampered with the mechanics so the program added more colors and even mathematical symbols to the game in order to increase the difficulty. Near the end of the game, she even doubled the panels and ramped up the speed at which the correct orders were displayed to make it impossible to win. In Wacko Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs gave a poor lighting in the area and removed the strings in order to make the player have trouble seeing where the Huggies emerged. In Statues, the exit was blocked by debris, whether by Mommy herself or by the ravages of time is unclear, making escape through the original exit impossible. Though sadistic towards the employees for experimenting on her, she is mentioned to be kind towards children. This is likely because she knows that they are innocent, they treat her very well, and that they are in no way responsible for her condition or situation. Although she is also sympathetic towards her fellow experiments, likely because she knows that they are in the same boat that she is not above killing them if they fail her, such as when she kills Bunzo and the mini Huggies off-screen for failing to kill the player. Despite her brutal and murderous nature, she is not completely fearless, such as when she screams in terror as her body is crushed in a grinder in her final moments. It is known that she fears one particular experiment, due to him being one of the most dangerous experiments, if not the most dangerous experiment, ever created in the factory, confirmed when she yells at the player that he will make her body a part of his should she die. Her fear somehow comes true when a hand, presumably his hand, drags her remains away. Mommy Longlegs appears to be inspired by toys out of the 90s to 2000s, specifically the famous Betty Spaghetti doll. Old mommy concepts that were seen in the storage facility can prove this theory. Mommy Longlegs' name is stylized as Mommy Longlegs on the transfer request and stylized as Mommy Longlegs on her official logo. Mommy Longlegs' name is a play on Daddy Longlegs, a name of several species of full city spiders. Some of her characteristics were based on spiders. Mommy Longlegs eats her victims from their organs, similar to how some spiders eat their prey. However, in the jump scares, the player can see her biting into their face. The theme song in her advertisement has the same melody as Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again.
When her body is being cut by the shredder, she dies immediately when her stomach is crushed. This is due to the fact that spiders have their heart and lungs located in the abdomen rather than the thorax. One deleted version of Mommy Longlegs' death shows her head getting crushed by the grinder as opposed to her body in the final game. The developers scrapped the idea due to too much graphic violence. 5. 6. This alternate death was foreshadowed in Mommy Longlegs' commercial at the start of the game. The commercial ended with a disclaimer text: "Don't expose elastic plastic to extreme heat or freezing temperatures." Since the release of the second chapter of Poppy Playtime, Mommy Longlegs has become as popular as Huggy Wuggy. On the basis of her character, they began to produce many cartoons, minigames, modifications to the game, popularize her in Minecraft, and also produce dolls copying her unusual appearance. All children around the world cannot come to a common opinion: who is the most popular of the heroes of the game, Huggy Wuggy or all the same Mommy Longlegs? As with Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs was also featured in the short film Poppy Playtime, Project Toy Breaker. This is an unofficial film adaptation of the popular video game Poppy Playtime, which has become truly viral and mimetic. Minimalistic survival horror Poppy Playtime has become so popular that it has penetrated the lives of people who are unfamiliar with video games in general, largely due to unusual and memorable characters, as well as thousands of viral videos on social networks. The creators of Secret Force Studio Cartoon believe that fans of the saga will appreciate the huge number of references, and people unfamiliar with the game will be interested and dare to try this game. Although the plot synopsis of the half-hour animated film is practically absent, it looks good. But how else? Because there is the main character of our review. Back in 1930, Elliot Ludwig founded Playtime, and in 1950 Playtime co-released the first toy, the Poppy doll, which also became the world's first doll with a built-in speaker that could speak freely to a child. In her commercial, Poppy is seen to be a social, outgoing, dainty and elegant individual. She also cares a lot about her appearance since she always wants to look her best, as seen within the vintage Poppy commercial. She is also very courteous, politely asking her owner if they could polish her shoes and brush her hair. The VHS tape simply introduces her as a toy with the ability to converse with a child, a revolutionary technology of her era. As such, Poppy gained mass attention and became popular. Her final words in the commercial being, "I'm a real girl, just like you." This leads to speculation that either Poppy is a human inside of the doll or this is just a reference to Pinocchio. In the final scene of Chapter 1, A Tight Squeeze, she is seen in a glass case, seemingly inactive until the player opens her case. Her eyes open, the light starts flashing, and you hear her say, "You opened my cage." It is unclear who or what put her inside the case and why she was in the case. We first meet Poppy at the very start of the game, in the Mommy Longlegs commercial. If we listen closely, before her appearance, She whispers "wake up" softly. After the glitching of said commercial, her face jumps out of the darkness, while she says "wake up" more forcefully. The commercial then cuts to black, and we don't meet Poppy again until going into the back rooms. Poppy seems to be free from her case, and we are initially startled by her accidentally pushing over a crate. She states that she was just trying to get the power back on, but allows us to do it on our own with our grab pack. Once turning on the power, she tells us about how she has been stuck in that case for so long. She then offers to help us, as we save her when blindly opening her case. This assistance she offers is to escape the factory through the game station, by taking the train which leads out of the factory, of which Poppy has the train code. Although the player enter the factory to find the missing employees, we accept. Poppy then helps us navigate this train station throughout the vents, following and guiding us as we move. We then meet with Poppy in a room with a large hole, surrounded by locked doors. Poppy tells us to trust her, but before she can continue, she gets snatched away by Mommy Longlegs. We then view Poppy in the clutches of Mommy Longlegs. In the game station hallway, Mommy mocks Poppy, whose mouth she'd covered with spiderwebs, explaining how it wouldn't be fun if Poppy were to just give the player the train code to the train. Instead, Mommy whisks Poppy away and makes us play 3 deadly games, each with their own antagonists, in order to get the train code and rescue Poppy. Upon completing all 3 mini-games, we must kill Mommy. After witnessing the prototype dragging Mommy's top half away, we then navigate through Bay 09 to find Poppy. After going through Bay 09, we find Poppy in the game station control room, trapped in spiderwebs, and alongside her is the final piece of train code. Upon using the grab pack to free Poppy, she seems different. Her bubbly, fun personality has given way to a dark, sadistic one, as she coldly asks us if we killed Mommy. She congratulates us, then boards the train, telling us that we need to leave. Once navigating to the front of the train, we enter the train code and the train starts. However, instead of escaping, Poppy suddenly decided to not let us leave yet and sends us deeper into the factory. She explains how she had so much time to think and reflect inside the case, and how she wants to set things right as she knows that we are capable of doing whatever she needs of us. She also says that terrible things have happened in the factory. Before Poppy can finish her monologue, she is caught off guard by the sound of an alarm clock, only having enough time to exclaim her surprise before the audio goes silent completely. The train then speeds up alarmingly, and we along with Poppy derail and crash, witnessing the sign for play care before blacking out. It is currently unknown where Poppy is, if she's still on the train or kidnapped again, and who or what cut her off. Although Poppy is revealed to be the player's ally in Chapter 2, it is partially theorized that she has many ulterior motives which could lead to her becoming an anti-hero. However, she might just need the player's help to defeat the prototype and end its reign of terror.
Don't be frightened. I'm going to help you. You set me free. In return, I will help set you free. You cannot escape the way you came. Your only escape is to take the train. It's just up ahead. The train requires a special code. I'm the only one left who knows it. Though you must be cautious. Mommy lurks in the darkness below. Mommy doesn't like guests.
The prototype, commonly known as Experiment 1006 or as the claw in his black form, is a mysterious entity mentioned within 2 VHS tapes. No information is currently known about the prototype's main appearance or motives, but he is presumed to be the main antagonist of Poppy Playtime. while his main appearance remains mostly unknown, his arm has been seen. It is a robotic arm with red wires and a hand with long, sharp needle fingers, resembling a claw. He also seems to have a human radius and ulna attached to his forearm for additional support. The prototype has been described as though he actually wants to commit violence for no reason. He has also been confirmed to possess an unprecedented level of intelligence, being able to combine basic objects and wreaking havoc around the factory. A scientist explained, in one of the VHS tapes, that the prototype had managed to construct a laser pointer from a digital alarm clock in his cell and tried to escape by using said laser pointer on the camera in his chamber, then hiding in the camera's blind spot whilst the camera was being fixed. It is theorized that the prototype takes parts of other toys around the factory and makes them a part of him, most likely to strengthen himself and help him achieve his motives, though said motives are currently unknown. As his claw appears immediately to take the torso of Mommy Longlegs after her death, and the door then opens for the player with no other hostility, it is possible that the prototype is helping the player progress through the factory in order to use the player to kill the other experiments for himself to assimilate. This suggests an uncanny knack for manipulation, planning, prediction, and a conniving personality. Little is known about the prototype. Guessing by his name and the flashing messages from the Chapter 1 trailer, he is the prime example for the type of vessel which we are trying to create. The prototype likely had the optimal vessel of a living organic experiment, of which he was serviceable as a crucial example for the others, presumably the other experiments. The prototype was kept in his chamber, monitored at all times. However, one day, he created a laser pointer from the digital alarm clock in his room, fired it at the camera and disabled it for 28.3 seconds. Upon which he hid in a blind spot, forcing a surveillance specialist to come in. He tried to escape through the door but was relocked before he could. He apparently killed the specialist who was trapped inside, as one casualty occurred. Hearing from the Experiment 1006 VHS tape from Chapter 1, he managed to escape and go missing. He also caused some unknown events to happen, which is presumed to be a massacre by the sounds of screaming, pounding, something running around in the vents, and the cutting off and supposed death of the scientist recording the tape. The final log, conjectural title, is a VHS tape recording found within Chapter 1, a tight squeeze of Poppy Playtime. The tape can be first obtained when entering the main entrance. The tape itself plays a recording of a scientist's log about the prototype, whilst the experiments are causing a massive murderous rampage in the background. Towards the end, the scientist is interrupted and killed by an unknown creature. An unknown scientist lists the video as the final log in relation to Experiment 1006, who also goes under the alias the prototype. The scientist logs the current state of the prototype, explaining that his precise coordination and cooperation remains. However, unlike prior logs, the prototype seems to have been missing for some time. In the background of the final log, people can be heard screaming as the monsters roam freely around the factory. The scientist continues by explaining that without the prototype, their experimenting had gone wrong and they can't continue. The scientist stops speaking for a brief second to the surprise of a monster banging on his door. The scientist finalizes the tape by explaining to any future viewers that if they want to continue the experimentation that was preformed with Playtime Company, they must safely confine the monsters at a secure location. The scientist attempts to conclude the tape by explaining that understood or not, the experiments created was a large breakthrough in science and one more discovery will continue the work the scientist preformed. The monster pounding on the scientist's door finally breaks open the door, and the scientist ends the log. Chapter 2, Fly in a Web. After Mommy Longlegs was killed by the grinder and her severed torso fell to the ground, the prototype's claw appeared from under the half-closed door to the left. He reached out and took Mommy's torso away, dragging it away back under the door. After this, he isn't seen again. Near the end of the chapter, before Poppy's monologue gets cut off, we hear the sound of an alarm clock going off, implying that the prototype has captured Poppy. Project Playtime. He doesn't make an appearance, but his hands are one of the grab pack skins in Project Playtime. Although, it has been theorized that he is the one that instructs the monsters during their tutorial. The event present in the background is theorized to be the fall of the Bigger Bodies initiative, with the prototype preforming a massive jailbreak which resulted in Bigger Bodies victims to run rampant around the factory, killing and feeding on any employees in the vicinity. that led to the deaths of many Playtime company scientists and forced the higher-up employees to flee the factory. This event could also lead us into the events of Project Playtime, where Leith Pierre sends in resource extraction specialists to collect the toy parts in the puzzle pillars, while the prototype sends savage monsters such as Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs and Boxy Boo to stop them and use their bodies to feed the starving experiments around the factory, such as the Wuggies. With the initial release of Chapter 1, players theorized that the prototype was Huggy Wuggy. This theory was disproved in Chapter 2, as Huggy Wuggy was referred to as Experiment 1170 in one of the logs left by the scientists. Human bones can be seen tangled in the wires of the hand, showing that the prototype was once human or that it took bones from one of the employees. It could likely have been taken from those he killed, as when Mommy Longlegs was being crushed to death in the grinder, she screamed that he'll make me part of him. This suggests that he's taking parts of toys and humans and making them part of his body. Given how Mommy states it, it is implied that toys are fully aware of what is going on in the factory. A number of death screen messages mention the prototype. From Chapter 1, EXP 1006. Isn't he wonderful? From Chapter 2, the prototype has saved us. Isn't he wonderful? Another from Chapter 2, he is loose. This is an emergency lockdown. The numbering of the experiments suggests that the prototype was created before Huggy Wuggy, Experiment 1170, and Mommy Longlegs, Experiment 1222, but after the failed experiment on a rat, Experiment 814. This, along with his name, suggests that the prototype may have been the second successful living organic experiment, the first being Poppy Playtime. In Project Playtime, a mysterious voice instructs Huggy Wuggy on what he needs to do to stop the survivors. Judging by its tone and mannerisms as well as the use of the arch word "get up,"
The others are hungry. The others are starving. Get up!
it is heavily implied that this voice belongs to the prototype. It is speculated that the prototype is trying to save the kids and experiments from Playtime Company. This was backed up by one of the VHS tapes in Chapter 1 saying, "Coordination and cooperation is in his skill set." It is also speculated that the prototype is Elliot Ludwig, saving those he had failed by fighting back against Harley Sawyer.